Oprah Winfrey adjusted her chair. The audience was still, holding its breath. And then she said it. "Catherine, I owe you the truth. I owe the world the truth." No audience clapping, no pre-recorded laughter, just a silence so thick it felt like a curtain falling over a stage too long, misused. The queen of talk shows, who once sat comfortably opposite Meghan Markle and Prince Harry during the now infamous 2021 bombshell interview, was back, but this time not to probe, to confess. And seated opposite her was no longer weighty Katie or the royal sister-in-law, but the future queen consort herself, Catherine, Princess of Wales, poised, poignant, and for the first time completely unfiltered. It's been 4 years since that 2021 interview first aired, sparking global outrage, frenzied Twitter wars, and a PR earthquake inside Buckingham Palace. But behind the camera lens, another drama was unfolding, one of doubt, regret, and eventually, accountability. I watched that interview back, again and again, and somewhere around the 5th time, I couldn't lie to myself anymore, Oprah said, her voice cracking. I believed things, because I wanted to, but I didn't ask the questions that needed asking. And tonight, in an unprecedented live-to-air special set to release at the end of October, Oprah sits face-to-face with the woman most damaged by that omission, Catherine, who finally breaks her silence not with fury, but with compassion. But don't mistake compassion for complacency. This is not a soft-spoken apology tour. This is a televised unmasking of what Catherine calls years of silence dressed up as grace. And it starts with one name, Meghan, the infamous question, the moment that still echoes through royal history. Did you make Kate cry? No, the reverse happened. 4 years ago, Meghan Markle answered this with icy certainty. In a setting bathed in California sunlight and righteous victimhood, it became the defining line of the interview. The tear that launched 1,000 headlines. The narrative was sealed. Meghan, misunderstood. Catherine, cold and cruel. But tonight, that story cracks. She didn't just cry, Catherine finally admits. We both did, and I apologized, immediately, in writing. She reaches into a small envelope. The camera zooms in. Inside a handwritten note, dated 5 days before the wedding. Meghan's handwriting. Thank you for the flowers. It meant a lot. I was emotional. I shouldn't have snapped. Catherine doesn't read it aloud. She doesn't have to. I never wanted this dragged into public, Catherine continues, voice firm but not angry. But when it was, I waited for the truth to correct itself. It never did. Oprah looks shaken. She leans forward, nods, visibly emotional. That moment, in 2021, it played into a narrative I now know was designed. Catherine, I'm sorry, for amplifying a falsehood, for not pushing harder, for allowing one voice to overshadow another that chose silence. The interview pivots, but the wounds stay fresh. Oprah brings up Catherine's children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. You're raising the future king. How do you even begin to carry that? Catherine smiles. It's the first moment of levity, but it's tinged with weariness. I've learned to stop asking for balance. It doesn't exist. I just ask for grace. And sleep, she laughs gently. But then she shares something new, something deeply human. Louis asked me the other night when he could come on tour. He said, "Mummy, I can carry your bag and do the waving bit." The audience chuckles softly, but Catherine's eyes glisten. I told him he had to grow up a little more, but inside, I thought, God, please don't grow up too fast. Because when they grow, I have to let them go. And in this family, that can mean letting go. In public, the conversation widens, not just about motherhood, but monarchy. Oprah asks about the looming shadow of Queen Elizabeth II's legacy and the expectations placed on Catherine's shoulders. I don't seek to be adored, Catherine says quietly. I hope to be useful. The line hangs in the air. People think crowns are heavy, she continues. They're not physically, but the symbolism, that's where the weight is. She shares how Princess Anne and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, have become her 2 closest confidants in recent years. Anne gives me strength. Sophie gives me sanctuary. It's the sisterhood I didn't know I needed. And for the first time, Catherine confirms, a new crown is being commissioned. It's not about jewels, she says. It's about legacy. The crown reflects the moment we're in. Mine will be lighter, but not less powerful. Oprah brings the interview to the most personal space yet faith. What got you through the cancer diagnosis? Catherine pauses, looks down, then answers, simply, God. Me. She elaborates. Not about religion, but about resilience. Faith gave me privacy in the chaos. It reminded me I'm not what people write. I'm not what they Photoshop. I'm not a headline. I'm a mother, a wife, and a woman still becoming. The audience sits in stunned silence. As the interview nears its final act, Oprah steps into dangerous territory. Catherine, I must ask. King Charles is unwell. There are whispers of his final wishes. Do they involve Harry? Catherine takes a breath. Her face remains composed. His Majesty wishes to see his son again. That's all I'll say. But then, a subtle shift. A pause. A choice to go further. Family matters. Forgiveness matters. But so does respect. And I believe the door is always open to those who knock with honesty. Oprah probes. Does that door include Meghan? A long pause. I think some doors lead to peace. Others lead to more storms. We must be wise enough to know which is which. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. What began as whispers inside palace corridors slowly became murmurs in television studios. Then, those murmurs turned into memos, background checks, internal reviews. Oprah's team had questions. So did Buckingham Palace. And after years of restraint, the truth began to take shape, piece by piece. This wasn't just about who made who cry. It was about the weaponization of narrative, about a royal outsider rewriting family history on global television and getting away with it for far too long. But no longer. We started to look back at the footage. Oprah reveals in her newest interview with Catherine, not just the interview itself, but everything around it. The prep, the fact checks, what we didn't say, what we didn't ask, and what we just accepted. The most damning details weren't even public until now. For the first time ever, internal notes from the 2021 interview team were referenced during the new broadcast. Oprah didn't name names, but she didn't have to. A former senior producer on the original broadcast privately shared with Oprah's 2025 editorial team that several key claims from Meghan had been flagged for inconsistencies during pre-production. Among them, the Flower Girl story, in which Meghan claimed Catherine reduced her to tears. In reality, Catherine apologized, and Meghan accepted days before the wedding. The silence narrative, suggesting Meghan was gagged by royal handlers. Yet her frequent public appearances, PR releases, and podcast negotiations during that same period told a different story. The infamous skin color allegation, where Meghan strongly implied ongoing racist discussions within the family. But Harry would later contradict this in his own memoir, saying it was a single offhand comment from a non-senior family member. Why didn't these contradictions see the light of day in 2021? Because I made a mistake, Oprah says simply. I prioritized emotion over accuracy, and Catherine paid the price. For years, royal aides operated under the age-old doctrine, never complain, never explain. But the emotional toll of Meghan's interview and the one-sidedness of the global response forced a quiet rebellion. Former staffers began sharing internal emails, first-hand experiences, and calendar logs with trusted contacts inside media circles. And what they revealed was damning. I was there the day the Flower Girl dresses arrived, one aide recalls. It was a tense moment. Emotions were high, but Catherine never raised her voice. She cried privately. Meghan did too. But the idea that Catherine bullied Meghan? That never happened. Another source confirmed that Catherine sent flowers and a note the next morning, attempting to patch things up. Meghan allegedly thanked her warmly. So when Meghan went on TV 3 years later and reversed the story, we were floored. But no one could speak publicly, not without risking royal protocol or their jobs. Until now. Back in 2021, Meghan's team moved quickly. PR blasts, global interviews, merchandising, mental health brand tie-ins, archetypes podcasts, Netflix documentaries. But behind the scenes, dissent was growing. As details unraveled, trust eroded. When Harry released Spare, palace insiders noticed something. Several of his accounts contradicted Meghan's version of events. He described mutual tears, tense conversations, attempts at reconciliation, none of which matched Meghan's emotionally one-directional narrative. In the Oprah-Catherine interview, this contradiction is gently, but clearly, addressed. Do you feel you were sacrificed for their narrative? Oprah asks. Catherine pauses. I think. It was convenient. Not because I did anything, but because I didn't. What made Catherine so dangerous to the Markle narrative wasn't anything she said. It was what she refused to say. I chose silence, Catherine explains. Not because I was guilty, but because I knew the truth lives longer than the tabloids. That strategy worked. Over time, as inconsistencies piled up, public trust in Meghan began to wobble, while admiration for Catherine soared. Polls now show that 68% of British citizens believe Meghan exaggerated or misrepresented events during her 2021 interview. Only 22% believe she told the truth in full. I've never needed to be loud to be heard, Catherine says simply. Time has a way of revealing what the moment hides. I'm frightened. Perhaps the most stunning turn in the entire special was not Catherine's revelations, but Oprah's self-examination. I've spent decades interviewing everyone from presidents to survivors, but I didn't do my due diligence. I believed too quickly. I confused pain with proof. She continues, Catherine, you were the person least able to defend yourself, and yet you carried that burden with dignity I didn't fully see. Until now. Catherine's reply, we all get carried away by a good story. But the best stories? The ones worth keeping? They're the ones grounded in truth. She walks into state dinners in gowns worth thousands, then returns home to pack her children's school lunches. She hosts ambassadors in Kensington Palace, yet still kneels in a hoodie on the sidelines of Prince Louis's football matches, cheering him on with the same energy as any other mum. This is the paradox of Princess Catherine. And in the interview with Oprah, we finally saw the woman behind the titles. They think royalty is about power, she smiles. But most days, I'm just making sure everyone's brushed their teeth and found their socks. The royal schedule is unforgiving. Catherine attends over 200 engagements a year, ranging from solo visits, to women's shelters, to glittering diplomatic galas, to school assemblies, where she speaks about early childhood development. Yet her priority, she says, remains unchanged. George, Charlotte, and Louis. George is growing into a thoughtful young man. Charlotte keeps us on our toes. She's got Granny Diana's fire, I think, Catherine chuckles. And Louis. Well, he's still deciding if he wants to be Spider-Man or a pilot. But he recently told me, Mummy, I want to come with you to work. I want to help you be queen. Oprah laughs, but Catherine's eyes glisten with something deeper, fatigue, perhaps, but also quiet pride. I told him he'd need to wait a bit longer, and maybe brush his hair first. The demands of royal life haven't softened since Queen Elizabeth's passing. In fact, they've intensified. With King Charles battling health issues, and Prince William stepping into more leadership, Catherine has become the monarchy's emotional anchor. There are days when I leave the house at 6 a.m. and I return after bedtime, she admits. I try to read a story to at least one of them, even if it's over video call. They know I'm working not just for the family, but for the country. But what about the criticism? The relentless social media scrutiny? The tabloids? Catherine answers with grace. People will say what they want, but I have 3 little people watching me. I want them to see that kindness, strength, and faith matter more than noise. While Meghan once spoke about feeling trapped by the palace structure, Catherine describes something quite different. It's not a cage, she says. It's a calling. She credits Princess Anne, famously tireless, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, as her most trusted guides. Anne leads by example. She works harder than anyone and never asks for applause. Sophie's been a sister through everything. She taught me how to lead softly and when to stand firm. Together, the 3 women represent the monarchy's modern female leadership, a balance of duty, warmth, and quiet steel. For the first time on record, Catherine confirms what royal watchers have long speculated. A new crown is being crafted for her future role. But it's not about size or sparkle. It won't be the flashiest, but it will reflect who I am and who I hope to be as queen one day. Catherine reveals the crown incorporates repurposed family jewels and motifs drawn from early childhood artwork and her patronages. It's not about grandeur, it's about service. I want every detail to mean something. Oprah, visibly moved, asks what message she hopes to send with it. That royalty isn't about being adored, it's about being useful. There was a moment during the interview when the lights dimmed, and for the first time, Catherine's composure trembled. Not from fear, but from memory. Oprah leaned forward gently. You went through something very private, very painful. How did you hold on? Catherine's eyes softened. She didn't hesitate. Faith, she said simply. That's the only answer that makes sense. No rehearsed statement, no palace talking points. Just truth raw, vulnerable, and unguarded. This was not the glamorous duchess the world met at fashion galas. This was a woman who had stared down mortality and chosen hope. It was early spring when Catherine received the news. The same woman who appeared radiant at public engagements, smiling through ceremonies and photo ops, was quietly enduring rounds of treatment, prayers, and long nights of fear. You start asking questions that no one can answer, she tells Oprah. Will my children remember me this way? Will they be scared? Will I get to see them grow up? The room fell silent. Even Oprah, seasoned by decades of confessions, blinked back tears. And then I realized something, Catherine continued. I had to believe in something larger than fear. I couldn't control the outcome, but I could control how I faced it. That's when faith stopped being abstract, it became a lifeline. Catherine describes faith not as ritual, but as rhythm, a steady pulse beneath the chaos. I prayed in the car before hospital visits. I prayed at night when the pain was sharp, not for miracles but for calm. Her words carry no self-pity, only perspective. People think of strength as loud speeches, defiance. But real strength is endurance. It's grace under pressure. During treatment, she says, she avoided looking at social media or headlines. When you're fighting for your health, you realize how loud the world is and how small your own circle becomes. It's just faith, family, and the people who stay. Among those people, Catherine quietly credits Princess Anne and Sophie once again, as well as her husband William. He's my compass, she says softly. And the children, they don't see the headlines. They just see Mummy. That's what kept me going. Oprah doesn't shy away from the darker side. The endless speculation, the cruel hashtags, the baseless rumors that swirled online during Catherine's absence from the public eye. How do you survive that kind of scrutiny? Oprah asks. Catherine's response is steady, but it cuts deep. You stop trying to survive it, she says. You stop giving power to voices that don't love you. I realized people will project their pain onto you if you let them. So I learned to turn down the noise. She pauses, then adds, when I came back, I made a promise to myself to focus on purpose, not perception. That promise reshaped her entire public image. Her projects, the Shaping Us campaign, her early years foundation, her quiet visits to children's hospitals, became not just acts of service, but acts of defiance against cynicism. I don't seek to be adored, she reminds Oprah. I hope to be useful. The quote trends online within minutes of the broadcast. It captures everything Catherine stands for: dignity without drama, substance over spectacle. As Oprah transitions to the next segment, she remarks, "You speak of faith like it's armor." Catherine smiles, almost shyly. It is, but not the kind that blocks people out. It's the kind that lets you stay open even when it hurts. She credits that openness for changing her view of royalty itself. People think crowns protect you. They don't. They expose you. The only real protection comes from knowing who you are before the world tells you otherwise. I'm one. Through illness, criticism, and relentless visibility, Catherine has redefined what it means to belong to the firm. Where others sought power, she has chosen a purpose. Where others demanded adoration, she has modeled humility. And where others weaponized their pain, she has turned hers into empathy. Faith isn't a headline, she says near the end. It's a heartbeat. It's what keeps you standing when the cameras go off. The audience, silent for a long moment, erupts into applause. Even Oprah, visibly moved, clasps Catherine's hand and whispers, "That might be the most honest thing I've ever heard on this show." It began with a gift, a rare blood-red ruby, offered by the Queen of Qatar during an early diplomatic visit. At the time, few could have imagined that this gemstone, set aside in a royal vault for nearly a decade, would soon become the centerpiece of the most symbolic royal artifact in a generation. The first ever personal crown commissioned for Princess Catherine. In her interview with Oprah, Catherine doesn't brag. She doesn't even use the word crown at first. It's not about possession, she explains. It's about responsibility. A crown should reflect the values of the person who wears it, not just the weight of tradition, but the shape of hope. But make no mistake, this is not just jewelry. This is history. Behind the closed doors of a recent meeting at Buckingham Palace, Princess Anne, the unshakable matriarch of duty, made an unprecedented proposal. She deserves a crown. Not borrowed, not symbolic. Her own. Anne is reported to have said to King Charles, Queen Camilla, and senior courtiers. That statement, sources say, shifted the room. It wasn't merely about aesthetics or ceremony. It was a declaration of confidence and of transition. A signal that the future queen was no longer simply waiting in the wings. She was standing center stage. Camilla reportedly bristled. Some say she insisted that no coronet or regalia could be granted without her approval as queen consort. But Charles, though weakened by illness, was said to have nodded gently. Let it be made. It's time. The crown will be designed and crafted by Gerard & Co., the historic British jeweler responsible for the iconic sapphire engagement ring of Diana and the imperial state crown. But this time, everything is different. Instead of opulence, the design emphasizes meaning. The ruby centerpiece, known as the Flame of Grace, symbolizes resilience through trial, a tribute to Catherine's battle with cancer. 12 platinum oak leaves represent the strength of motherhood and her 3 children, each leaf etched with one of their birthstones. A circle of intertwined lilies and wheat, cast in white gold, symbolizes feminine wisdom and harvests the fruits of quiet work. A single diamond, placed at the back, was said to be discreetly passed down by Queen Elizabeth II herself, with a note, "For the one who carries grace with silence." The estimated cost? Over £5, 6 million, placing it among the top 3 most valuable modern royal crowns. But Catherine's only question, she says, was, how much of it can we tie to causes? Can we incorporate gems from Commonwealth partners or pieces that represent the charities? The designers said yes, and so the base of the crown will carry repurposed stones from Kenya, the Solomon Islands, and the Caribbean, an elegant nod to global unity in the face of post-colonial tension. Oprah, aware of the growing speculation, presses the question, is this a challenge to Queen Camilla's position? Catherine pauses, then answers, carefully, no, it's a reflection of my journey. Camilla has her role. I have mine. This crown isn't about status, it's about service. But the subtext is clear. As Catherine's visibility rises, Camilla's influence wanes. While Camilla resists further ceremonial transfer of power, much of the public and private trust has quietly shifted to William and Catherine, especially as Anne, Sophie, and even the Duke of Edinburgh rally behind them. A palace aide reportedly described it as a peaceful succession. Camilla is queen by title, Catherine is queen in spirit. The news of the crown's creation leaked days before the Oprah interview aired. And the public reaction? Overwhelming. Social media flooded with hashtags like #Catherine the Steady and #Crown for Kate. Thousands gathered outside Kensington Palace with handmade signs, "Our future queen. She earned it. Not born royal, made royal." Royal commentators, even former critics, praised the symbolism of the crown's design. British Vogue published a spread titled, "The Woman Who Wears Grace Like Armor," while the Times ran a front-page editorial urging the palace to consider an early ceremonial blessing, even before the formal coronation. For Catherine, the crown is not a prize, it is a promise. I want young girls to see it and know, you don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't have to be born royal to carry yourself like one. She adds, almost as a whisper, you just have to keep showing up every single day. And she has for over a decade. Through marriage, motherhood, scandal, loss, and illness, she showed up. And now, for the first time, the crown is showing up for her. The lights on set had dimmed. Oprah had put down her cue cards. Most thought the interview had wrapped. But then came the pause, that sacred kind of silence that only happens when something real is about to be said. Catherine sat back, her hands folded over her lap. Her voice dropped just slightly. There is one part we haven't spoken about yet. But I think, now is the time. Oh? And just like that, we stepped into the heart of the monarchy's most delicate family fracture, one the public thought would never be addressed again. It was a private visit. No photographers, no aides. Just Catherine and King Charles, in a sterile, quiet hospital room. He was lucid, tired, but sharp, Catherine recalls. We talked about many things, but then he said something that made my heart stop. Charles, who has been battling a resurgence of cancer, reportedly took her hand and whispered, "Promise me you'll help bring him home. William can't do it alone, but he deserves his brother back." Catherine hesitated, unsure if she should even share this moment. But then she nodded, not in agreement, but in recognition of the weight of the request. What came next, Catherine says, is something she'll never forget. He looked at me and said, "But not with her. Meghan can't come back. Not like this. She doesn't respect what we are." Oprah gasped, and the audience, watching live across the world, erupted on social media. This wasn't a palace leak or tabloid headline. This was Catherine confirming the most whispered royal ultimatum of the decade. And yet, there was no cruelty in her tone. Only clarity. He still loves Harry deeply, but he also knows the damage that's been done. Trust isn't a given anymore. It has to be rebuilt. Insiders say Harry has received messages through back channels, including from Princess Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh, encouraging reconciliation without Meghan. But Catherine is firm. "I've never closed the door, but I won't reopen wounds either. If Harry wants to come home, he'll have to come as a brother, not as a brand." She also confirms that no official titles would be restored immediately, that any return would be gradual, private, and conditional on time, not PR. William, sources say, is more guarded, still reeling from the betrayal of the Oprah 2021 interview, which painted Catherine as a villain and left the entire royal household blindsided. Perhaps the most striking part of this final segment wasn't about Harry or Meghan. It was Catherine herself, speaking not just as a duchess or a wife, but as a queen in waiting, standing her ground. "I don't seek to be adored. I hope to be useful," she says. "This crown, these children, this family, they deserve truth, not performance. If someone wants to come back, they must come back with humility." Oprah is visibly moved. "That sounds like leadership," she says. Catherine shrugs, almost shyly. "I suppose it's just motherhood, really, applied to a much older son. As the interview wraps, Oprah delivers a final reflection. You've changed a lot of hearts today, and you've made it clear. This monarchy will be led not by spectacle, but by service. Catherine doesn't smile, not right away. Instead, she touches the small gold pendant around her neck, one given to her by the late Queen Elizabeth II. Then, softly, I carry her lessons with me, and I hope, when the time comes, I can make her proud. The broadcast ends, but the impact ripples across the globe. Millions tune in live and on replay within the first 24 hours. Number Catherine speaks, number crowned with grace, and number not with her trend worldwide. Public polls shift dramatically, with over 75% of Britons supporting Catherine's approach to reconciliation. For Meghan, silence remains the strategy. Her team declines all media requests. But for Catherine, silence has never been weakness. It has been strength in waiting. And now, she has spoken. With truth, with limits, with grace. And with a crown that was never given but earned.